I don't believe that we should ever have a good money again before we take the thing out of the hands of government.
Welcome back, everyone. We're Simply Bitcoin. We break down the news, the daily fail, meme review, software releases, hardware releases, and the websites by plebs. Joining us today, fellow Bitcoiner, miner, chief mining officer at Bitfarms. I'm talking about Ben Gagnon. He's joining us. We are diving into the numbers, though. Let's do it.
Number time! Brought to you by Bitcoin 2022. It's going to be the largest Bitcoin conference celebration party ever, hosted in Miami Beach, Florida from April 6th to the 9th. Get your tickets quickly before the price goes up. Speaker list includes President Nayib Bukele, Michael Saylor, Saifuddin, Adam Back, Jack Mallers, Senator Lummis, and Dr. Jordan Peterson, and many, many more. You can take advantage of the link down below for 10% off your tickets to Bitcoin 2022.
At the time of this recording, the block height is 728,847. The Bitcoin price, 43,910. Chain rewrite days, 739. Total public lightning capacity, 3,564.53. I do believe that's higher than yesterday, Nico. Moscow time, 2277. Blocks to the halvening, 111,153. And the Samurai Whirlpool unspent capacity. Samurai Whirlpool is a coin join or collaborative spend service. It is not a mixer, and the unspent capacity is 4,390.98. The numbers.
The numbers. Dude, it's so funny. We got a comment on yesterday's video. It said, Moscow time reported.
Exactly.
So the Moscow time meme was created before the events that are happening in Ukraine. So, yeah. Anyways, it's funny. But no, I think they were trolling us. But anyways, guys, you know the deal of the show. If you're new to this channel, we don't speculate. We're not going to tell you where we think the price is going to go, like a lot of other YouTubers. We like to focus on the signal. And what we do advocate for is long-time preference, fiat mine as much as possible from your fiat job and just dump that into Bitcoin. And I have this very good tool that highlights the power of DCA, and we're going to go to it. It's called dcabitcoin.com. Right. And look, $10 a week. Right. That's not, not a crazy amount of money. And if you started doing that, for a weekly basis, let's move it to a daily basis. Right. You invested a total, right, of $18,000. Right. You do this for 5 years. Today it'd be worth $152,000. If you did the same thing with the S&P or the Dow Jones, right? You invested 18,000 here, and it would be 21,859, and for the Dow Jones it'd be 23,793,000. That is absolutely depressing, right? To be honest with you. So, and you could kind of change it up a little bit, right? Let's say you wanted to invest a little bit more, right? Let's say you wanted to invest $50, right? You want to move up. You invested a total of $100,000 over a period of 5 years. Right, and today it'd be worth almost $1 million, $762,000. That is the power of DCA. That is what we advocate for on this show. Let's say this is what I hear a lot of people do. Let's do $100 a week, weekly. So that would be a total of $26,000. Today it'd be worth $219,000. Right. So let's move it on to. Because we're advocates for long time preference here on this show. Let's say you do that for 8 years, right? You total invested a period of 8 years. If you invested $100 on a weekly basis, if you did that for 8 years, right, the total amount you would have invested would be $41,800. The total amount you would have today would be $2,500,000. That is the power of DCA. That is why we advocate it for on this show. If you have something like Bitcoin, why are you going to risk it in trading? Experience what Phil and I have experienced, because more likely than not, especially if you get into Bitcoin, what happens is you get really attracted to the shitcoin, especially in the beginning. You're like, oh, it's faster, Bitcoin's boring, whatever, this and this and that. And then perhaps you dabble your toes in it a little bit, you get wrecked, it humbles you, then you go full Bitcoin, right? So anyways, Ben, what are your thoughts on DCAing? Do you have any stories about it, et cetera, et cetera?
Yeah, DCA is also what I recommend to people too who are getting into Bitcoin. It's just the easiest, safest way I think to get the exposure. it's a great method for everybody. Anybody can do it. There's lots of platforms out there to get involved, and it makes a lot of sense. And you take away that risk of, hey, I put in all my money into Bitcoin today and it's down 20% tomorrow, which, that's the sort of thing that really kills people on Bitcoin. It's just a bad luck and bad timing. And if you DCA, you never have that experience. So I highly recommend it. And, mining is my way of daily cost averaging into the Bitcoin as well. So I'm just taking it one step further.
It's crazy because I thought you mined with a pickaxe, but apparently you mine with a rake. I didn't know. But
yeah, you get more Satoshis that way.
Rake it. Anyways, Phil, what are your thoughts on this?
I'm a bit of a DCA degen. So I do dollar cost average, but also at the same time, I do random purchases because I can't help myself. So if the Bitcoin price dumps, I have to buy some, but also at the same time, when the Bitcoin price pumps, I get this FOMO that I haven't bought enough. So it's really weird. So yeah, so I do a bit of both, and I don't recommend anyone follow my non-method because I don't really consider it a method, but yes, DCA.
Yeah, but that's bullshit, bro, because I don't think anybody has the discipline not to smash buy. Okay, as long as you,
I feel like there's somebody out there that's disciplined enough. This is Bitcoin.
You're speaking of unicorns. So look. Okay, at the end of the day, because it's like a dopamine fix. I'm not lying, right? As long as you do it progressively over time, right, you're good, because that accomplishes the same thing as DCA. Because it takes away the fun out of it if you just leave it automated. The whole point is that you smash by, you're like, yeah, so it feels good. And then you're like, oh, why did I wait? But that's the whole experience of it. But yeah, man, I just wanted to highlight that website because it highlights the power of what we advocate for. If you trade, more than likely than not, you're going to lose money. If you buy shitcoins, I almost guarantee you're going to lose money unless you the insiders, etc., etc. But anyways, Phil, it's time for
The Daily Fail. Brought to you by Amber App. Check them out, amber.app. It's no secret. We've all got to stack sats. Why don't you stack with an app by actual Bitcoiners? Low fees, fair spreads, smart automation. The link is down below.
Amber, the smart way to stack sats.
We've got two completely unrelated fails. Let's dive into them. Let's get Ben's thoughts on some of this stuff. Here we go. Okay, so first we've got tweet by Preston Pish. Preston is not our fail, okay, but it's the information that is in the tweet. That is failure. Let's dive into it. When a central banker is getting into the compelling arguments phase of whether a currency should or shouldn't be a global reserve currency, that's not a good sign. And what is he doing? He is retweeting from Financial Juice, or Breaking News, which I've never really heard of, but anyways. Feds barkin', there are numerous compelling arguments for the dollar to remain the world's reserve currency. And let's take a look. Crypto Cloaks, our sponsor, wrote back right here. This is beautiful. So it's not a good reserve currency anymore. Perfect. That's why we Bitcoin. Yes, that is exactly why we Bitcoin. So, look, that's really cringe. Okay, to me, this is the beginning of the narrative falling apart stage. Because now all of a sudden, so hold on a second. Its qualities are no longer the compelling argument. It can't stand on its own. So now we bring in the puppet show and they start to spin you a story of why it's compelling. I don't know. Look, I know you're a miner. This may not be like really on topic for you, but do you have any thoughts on this?
I love talking about central banks and the fiat money printers, so that's not an issue with me.
Sweet.
I think it's pretty amazing that they admit it out loud. Surely they've known this for a very, very long time, right? And surely this has been an internal position. But actually coming out and saying something like this, I think is pretty bullish on Bitcoin. Most of the time, what you get out of the Fed or any other central bank is guidance, right? And none of that makes any sense. They say, hey, expect us to do this in 3 months. And then, hey, expect us to do this in 6 weeks. And then it comes down to the time and they don't do anything and nobody cares because they're on to the next 3 month guidance. There's a lot of things like that happening in the Fed where they'll manipulate the numbers so much. And this is why we need Bitcoin. you don't even get an actual unemployment number from the Federal Reserve. You get a number that's published, and then that's revised, and then that's revised again, and then that's revised again. And by the time it's revised 3 or 4 times, nobody looks back on those revisions. They're only looking at the one that's being published now. And so, they can say whatever they want, in order to get those results. It doesn't have to be, true or realistic. They can do whatever they want. So to hear the cat come out of the bag like that, I think is pretty bullish. Smash buy.
Smash buy, smash. But yeah.
That's how we do it. DCAD Gen. Okay, sorry, Nico, go on.
Dude, no, I think Ben said it beautifully. I think that, the Wizard of Oz analogy that I always use, right? The curtain is being exposed, and behind there's just nothing. There's just a dude pressing, an old guy on a Windows 1999 pressing the P button. And yeah, look, but they sure know how to play pretend, that's for sure. Anyways, Phil, what's the next fail?
Yeah.
All right. We're not going to stop. Anyways, we were tagged by Hans Films in this one again, right? He has been providing us awesome fail stuff. Follow Hans. Maybe I'll put his information in the show notes, okay? Let's dive into this terrible, ridiculous story. Totally clickbait, and of course I had to click. So here we go. Because Hans shared it with us. So Ethereum runs towards deflation with upcoming updates, leaving Bitcoin behind. Oh yes, I'm sure it's leaving Bitcoin behind. Here we go. Ethereum is expected to become deflationary after it leaves proof of work and mining behind and completely transitions to piece of shit proof of stake, a staking protocol. The reason is that the transition is expected to decrease Ethereum's issuance rate by about 90%. And ever since the implementation of Ethereum Improvement Protocol 1559, as part of the London hard fork, the network has been burning the near totality of its transaction fees. The amount of ETH issued is projected to drop by 90%. You guys hear what I'm telling you? These are amazing numbers, right? Anybody who's thinking, right? That's awesome. It's great. Why not? Why not Ethereum? Okay. Anyways, obviously it got me thinking, what the hell are they talking about? We all know that you can't verify the circulating supply of Ethereum, and we all know that you can't verify the max supply. So look, I said, all right, let's just go dive into it. Let's go take a look. What is being said right now about the Ethereum max supply? Okay, so this article is from January 24th, 2021. As of the writing of this article, there are around 114.3 million ETH. I don't know why, but I remember them bragging about how there was like 99 million. Anyways, it doesn't even make a difference. In circulation, this will keep changing, and you can verify the circulating supply information on various Ethereum block explorers and websites. However, you'll never find out the max supply information. And this is true because they have no max supply. So this bullshit about being deflationary is complete nonsense. And now we're going to defer to the white paper. So look, anybody wants, they can definitely go take a look, try to find me a max supply number. The amount of gibberish that is in this white paper is astounding. But the one thing that I was able to show that made this extremely comical is this freaking chart right here. They have no maximum supply. What kind of mental fuckery is this? But what is this? Like, is this a joke? Long-term inflation rate for Ethereum. But you have no max supply.
Yeah.
Ben?
Why do they want to cap it? I mean, then they stop their own money printer. It's crazy.
How do they make these claims?
It's
rhetorically, I'm saying.
They can claim anything that they want. I actually started out with mining Ethereum. I found out about Bitcoin way, way earlier, but I thought I was too late. And so when Ethereum came out, I said, "Oh man, this is my second chance." I started mining Ether back in 2015, but I quickly learned the errors of my ways over a couple of years. But in my first couple of years, I was a pretty hard S guy, and I went to DevCon 2 in China. And I remember people talking, "Oh, the switch to POS, it's happening. It's right around the corner. I can't believe you still have S mining rigs. They're not going to be worth anything by the end of 2016 because POS is months away." And I was laughing. I said, I can't believe you actually believe that. But you know, a lot of people did, and the 480 GPUs that I was running on back then can still run Ethereum now. 6 years later, actually 7 years after Ethereum launched, you can still mine Ethereum on the same GPUs you did when you started if you had good enough ones. You know, it's insane to me. They're never ever going to become a Bitcoin. They're a completely different animal than Bitcoin. I consider Ethereum the WeWork of crypto. You know, here's this thing that looks awesome. It looks cool. It looks revolutionary. I want to be a part of it. I want to, you know, work here. But none of the math works. Like the whole business model has failed. Nothing is functioning, but they can raise a lot of money on it because it looks great and people want to be a part of what that looks like. And so they raise a bunch of money saying, hey, we understand, we know this doesn't work now, but wait till we fix it. Wait till we make it all work. And then imagine how valuable this can be when everything works. They never admit that nothing works now. Just imagine how valuable it will be if everything goes out, you know, and perfectly. And that's how WeWork raised a bunch of money. But you know, all these things have to come crashing down. They're unsustainable projects over the long term, and eventually, at some point, people are going to start realizing, hey, they haven't delivered on their promises. They're not delivering on their promises, and they won't deliver on their promises. And so, if you think that Ethereum is going to replace AWS, and that's what you're making your investment, on, it's just never going to reach that stage. So they'll kick the can down the road indefinitely, and continue POW indefinitely, because they never want to have that full switch. The second that they fully switch to POS, everybody's going to say, well, wait a minute, this thing doesn't work. I thought you said when we go full POS, everything is going to be amazing. I thought you said the world's going to change. So they're never going to get rid of POW, because if they did, then they'd have to admit that they were wrong, and everybody goes on to the next thing.
Yep, dude, hit the nail on the head, and it's what I always say, guys, right? Like, and you use the term, Ben, right? Kick the can down the road, and why is that, right? Because only Bitcoin has figured out how to separate the monetary policy out of the hands of human beings, right? And with all these shitcoins, including Ethereum, the monetary policy can be manipulated by human beings, right? So you see the same type of behavior in the beginning. It's like, yeah, it starts with good intentions, right? But it's like, but we could just print a little bit more money, right? So I think that's the problem with Ethereum. I completely agree. It's a giant scam. And I think, Bitcoin really does fix this. But anyways, Phil, it's time for
the Daily Meme Review.
Brought to you by Citadel 21. It's the best Bitcoin cultural zine. It's stories, articles, comics by actual Bitcoiners. Every volume has different artwork by Bitcoiners, of course, Bitcoin artists. And they're scarce. There's only 1,000 physical copies made per volume. Get your print of Citadel 21 today. All right, everybody. First meme is brought to us by Decentipod.
This came from our group, by the way.
Oh,
the Centipod is in our group. That's right, and that's where he posted it. So
shout out to the plebs. All right, let me zoom out. It's the classic. You owe nothing, you'll be happy. You'll have fun staying poor, and you'll be happy. Absolutely hilarious.
Yeah,
very well done.
That's about right.
Shout out to the plebs. All right, next one is by TK. First day of homeschooling. Everything the state says is a lie, and everything it has stolen.
Come on.
The kids look really happy learning that.
They do. Oh, Ben, this one's perfect for you. Okay. That's an S9. Okay. Best use case for transhumanism. If I could just reach zero zit outlet, you will mine nothing and you'll be poor.
Come on, Honk Hogan. That was awesome.
All right, next one is by Ad Maximum. If I had to do it, Bitcoin measured in pixas, 2010 versus 2022. 2010, 10,000 Bitcoin and 2 pixas. 10,000 Bitcoin, 324,000 pixas.
No, wait, I think that's 10 BTC. Isn't that 10 BTC?
Is it? No, it's 10,000.
No, it's 10,000.
It's
10,000 was the original price. Yeah.
I think 10,000 Bitcoin could buy you a lot more pixas.
Yeah.
In my opinion. Yeah. I think that math is wrong. Anyways. Maybe it should be like 30 million or something. More than that.
Way more pizza.
Anyway, Preston Fish. Okay, so Phil already went this in the fail, but we're not going to do that. What we're going to do is we're going to review the memes in the comments. And so this is, the central banking. This is to degrade a toxic Bitcoiner. Bro, please use our currency. Come on. It's the reserve with full faith and credit. Please, bro. Come on. It's stable. I swear, please, bro. That's really good. All right, next one. We reviewed this one by Rally, but just to kind of give you guys a recap. This is the Dead Sea. This is the saltiest place on Earth, second only to Peter Schiff. And then scroll down. Peter Gollum from the darkest, saltiest depths of the earth, formerly known as Portugal, until he was completely corrupted by gold.
It's pretty well done.
Very, very nice. Very, very nice. Anyways, for those memes, I'm going to let... You know what? No, because... Okay, I'm going to give it, Phil, very, very good score. A lot of thought into this. It's an empty water bottle. Ben, what would you give those memes?
That's a tough one, but probably a Bitcoin mining rake behind me.
Yeah, Bitcoin mining rake. This is true. That's Signal right there. Anyways,
We've
Phil.
never had the rake.
We've never had the rake. Phil, what would you give those memes?
All right. I am giving it this very special. Very special. It's my favorite Rip and Dip sticker that I have. You see what the cat's saying?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Fuck you too, Phil. Fuck you too. Anyways, guys, we want to know if you agree with our scores, disagree, let us know down in the comment section. Make sure to subscribe to us on alternative video platforms because we do talk shit about the World Economic Forum, like Rumble.com and our personal favorite, BitcoinTV.com. They don't censor there because Bitcoin TV. And join our Telegram group. Link us some dank, Bitcoin memes to review. But anyways, Phil, it's time for
the Daily News.
Brought to you by CryptoCloaks.com. They make the best 3D printed Bitcoin merch, like the famous 3D printed Bitcoin art sculpture. Opens up, you put your favorite hardware wallet in there. Also, you can get this in any custom color your heart desires. You want to make this orange, you could do that. This just happens to be in the color of El Salvador. And you can take advantage of the link down below for 5% off anything off the CryptoCloaks.com online store. All right, so we were going to talk about mining stuff with Ben today, but there was just so many nuclear bombs of news that we are going to talk about mining. We're going to get to that, right? Huge announcement today. But first, I want to get Ben's thoughts on this. This was a very big deal, right? So U.S. Senate to consider bill examining El Salvador Bitcoin experiment. Think about how crazy that is for a second. Yeah. A sovereign country passed a bill. The president has an 80% approval rating, and they pass it through their legislator, and the United States is somehow passing a bill to examine if that's okay. That isn't colonialism. I don't know what is. Anyways, the article goes on to say the full U.S. Senate will vote on a bill looking to mitigate the risks to the U.S. financial system. That's a Freudian slip, huh? From El Salvador's adoption of Bitcoin as legal tender after the bill was passed out of committee Wednesday. Accountability for Cryptocurrency and El Salvador's Act. And it's bipartisan, I might add. It's the Republican Party and the Democratic Party. And this is a quote from one of the senators. As El Salvador has adopted Bitcoin as legal tender, it's important we understand and mitigate potential risks to the U.S. financial system, to the U.S. dollar, which the politicians benefit from. I don't think the financial risk is at risk. Anyways, he added that legislation would require the state and treasury departments, among other federal agencies, to mitigate risks such as potential empowerment of China and organized criminal organizations. Ooh. The bill would also ask the U.S. to monitor remittances from El Salvador. It's so fucked up because Bitcoin, not the commodity, but the rails is saving. We already know this. It's going to save El Salvadorians tens of millions of dollars in remittance fees alone. This is the President Nayib Bukele responding to that, and he has screenshots of the bill, which we'll put down in the link description. He says, "Never in my wildest dreams would I have thought the U.S. government would be afraid of what we are doing here." It's so true, right? The U.S. government does not stand for freedom, and that is a proven fact. So we will stand for freedom. Game on. Bitcoin is FU money. Now check this out. This is so maniacal and fucked up in so many different ways. I don't even know what to say. He definitely sniffs his own farts, for sure. How do I know that? He puts his credentials, not even in the bio, in his name himself. U.S. Senator Bill Cassidy. MD. Anyways, Salvadorian residents in the United States don't like this policy. We are being responsive to their concerns. The dude has an 80% approval rating, and this guy has the fucking gall to say it, not only in English, but in Spanish too. This motherfucker doesn't speak Spanish. Anyways, perhaps they don't trust the president who brags about trading Bitcoin naked. Ooh. Of course, he got totally demolished in the comment section. We'll put it down below so you guys can check it out. This is what Gladstein had to say. Gladstein thinks The Senate is pursuing the legislation because it's worried El Salvador is directly providing a parallel structure to the existing way foreign aid and monetary assistance is given. I'm going to scratch out foreign aid and monetary assistance, and I'm going to just replace it with control, right? He added that the bill seems designed to force the State Department to cast aspirations on El Salvador's Bitcoin plans. And remember what we always say, right? Is that Bitcoin shines a light of truth. And it's doing exactly that here. Anyways, Ben, what are your thoughts on this? It's just crazy, dude. It's just revealing so many things that we knew that were there, but there's no way to prove it.
Oh, for sure. I mean, to say right there that El Salvador's Bitcoin strategy is a threat to the United States obviously has a lot of bigger implications. I just did some quick Googling while you were going through that. I mean, El Salvador's GDP is 25 billion. The world's GDP is 84 trillion. You know, El Salvador relative to the world is a fraction of 1%. You know, to think that what they do there could threaten the US financial system is a joke. You know, the only thing that they're doing there is they're being the first person. They're leading the wave. They're leading the charge. And obviously what the US is afraid of is not afraid of what El Salvador is doing. It's afraid of what all the other countries are going to do when they adopt Bitcoin. And I'm personally of the belief that I don't think it's going to be the countries that run their own money printers that are going to be the first to adopt Bitcoin. I think it's going to be the countries that are dollarized. So there are 30, 40 odd countries in the world that use US dollars for their main currency. And they did it for two reasons. One, they knew that if they did it themselves, it would be corrupted and it would be printed to nothing and become worthless. And two, they wanted something that was accepted everywhere. But, you know, this isn't 40, 50 years ago. The world has completely changed. And, you know, now they have the ability to do what they wanted to do originally by adopting a Bitcoin standard and saying, hey, look, you know, the US is corrupt Federal Reserve and they're printing money and we have no control over our financial responsibilities and our financial system. Why don't we adopt a Bitcoin standard where it can't be corrupted? And two, it's accepted everywhere. So, you know, this is a logical transition, I think, for these dollarized countries to take back a lot of sovereignty. And I think that scares the US a lot.
Yeah, absolutely. Phil, what are your thoughts on this?
I just think it's hilarious because the essentially the US government thinks that this matters. Like, and I know in their minds that this is incredibly important and this matters, but you said it right there. I mean, look at the GDP compared, you know, of El Salvador compared to the world. I mean, they are a speck, really, know, on the map, on the heat map. And they are, you know, how could I say this? It's like a massive microscope on them, right? Because they are doing this dangerous, foolish Bitcoin experiment. I mean, look, who decided that there was only one organization that you can go and get money from? I mean, you know, I've mentioned this in the past, and it's not just me. People way smarter than me have mentioned this before. The SDRs, this fake money that the IMF uses to essentially enslave all these countries under the guise of financial aid. Oh, we'll just give you a longer term to pay it back. These people are completely insane. Bitcoin is a fantastic parallel system. El Salvador should 100% be cheered on to attempt a parallel system. We should all be really excited, but for some reason there's a large group of people where their incentives are just to be, I don't know how to say it other than evil. And I know Nico is right about saying, you know, not everybody's just sitting there with, like, you know, twirling their mustaches being evil, but I honestly think that somehow there's some level of mental fuckery. Okay, yeah, it's happening. Okay, and they're like, yes, you know, I want to support this system because it's good for me, and screw these people, even though I know that what they're doing is perfectly fine and probably the right thing.
Yeah,
I do think that there's people out there,
dude. But it's not Klaus Schwab. Definitely other people. Anyways, we got very, very lucky, guys. I'll be honest with you, because this is a nuclear bomb. We've predicted this for months now. It was inevitable that gas and energy companies were going to get into Bitcoin mining. The incentives are irresistible. And we got very lucky because Ben came on the show when this news drops. So this is absolutely bonkers. We're going to get his comments in a little bit. I'm going to read some of the article. It says, this is by Bloomberg. Exxon weighs taking gas to Bitcoin pilot countries. So absolutely crazy. Exxon Mobil is running, which is one of the biggest energy companies in the world. ExxonMobil Corp is running a pilot program using excess natural gas that would otherwise be burned off from North Dakota oil wells to power cryptocurrency mining operations, and is considering doing the same at other sites around the globe, according to people familiar with the matter. The oil giant has an agreement with Curate Energy Systems to take gas from oil well pad in the Bakken Shale Basin to power mobile generators used to run Bitcoin mining servers on site, said the people, who asked to not be named because the information isn't public. The pilot program, which launched in January 2021 and expanded in July, used up to 18 million cubic feet of gas per month that would have otherwise been burned off or flared because there aren't enough pipelines. So all the fucking green people that are talking shit, there you go. Anyways, Exxon, the largest U.S. oil producer, is considered similar pilots in Alaska, the Ku-Uber terminal in Nigeria, Argentina's Vaca Muerta shale field, Guyana, and Germany. One of the people said. This is a quote for, I'm sure, spokesperson from Exxon. He says, "We continuously evaluate emerging technologies aimed at reducing flared volumes across our operations. And Exxon expects to meet the World Bank's call to end routine flaring by 2030. Because of Bitcoin." Spokesman Sarah Norden said in an email she declined to comment on rumors and speculations regarding the pilot project. So, Ben, I think this is huge, but I'm just a humble pleb. What are your thoughts on this?
It makes perfect sense. The flare gas mitigation thing is, I think, the nail in the coffin for a lot of these ESG FUD that we hear coming out about Bitcoin mining. Before I joined Bitfarms, I was actually in Alberta selling containerized Bitcoin mines to oil and gas companies specifically for this purpose back in 2018 and 2019 when this wasn't really a big thing. But, I'd go in and speak with some of these large oil and gas companies, and you show them the math, and over time they start to understand it, where you show them, their unit of gas, that MMCF, is going to go for, back then it was about $2 Canadian, but you convert that into Bitcoin and you're getting $25 out of that same unit of gas. Why do you want to sell your gas to the market for $2 when you can sell it to Bitcoin for $25? It's a huge increase. It takes investment and it takes, CapEx and operations and everything else. But Bitcoin is a much more valuable energy market for gas. And the flared gas situation is particularly interesting because this is marginal cost energy. This is an energy asset that was completely written off on the books as never being able to be monetized or used or stored properly, right? Cost effectively. And so Bitcoin comes in here. We monetize this asset at marginal cost electricity. That means that all those old S9s can just be redeployed into flare gas mitigation. What does that do? Well, that extends the useful lifespan of that equipment, which is already at 7 years. It's already at 7 profitable years for an S9, depending on where you are. It extends that lifespan out for years. It drastically reduces the cost to oil and gas companies because they're buying cheaper used equipment that's depreciated in value, which means that they spend less per site and they can reduce more flare gas across more sites across all the world with the same amount of capital. I mean, this is a really, really game-changing thing. And if you want to, talk about reducing emissions, which I think is a bunch of nonsense, but if that's your goal, if your goal is to reduce emissions, absolutely. There's no better technology on the planet than Bitcoin mining through flare gas, because every other technology in the planet requires private subsidies in order to make it, or government subsidies in order to make it economical. This is the only technology in the world that provides an economic incentive to producers all over the world to directly reduce their emissions and profit as a result. It's the only one. So there's no better technology on the planet for reducing emissions.
Beautiful. Phil, are you as bullish as I am, bro?
Yes, definitely. Okay, so look. So we've got, let's take a look at this from like a slightly different angle, and definitely much less knowledgeable about mining, but just the overall social picture, right? So we've got governments trying to fight Bitcoin, okay, and we've got all this quote unquote legislation trying to push Bitcoin out, but yet we've got Intel that we announced last week. That was announced that they're going to be joining the mining game, right? By creating their own version of ASICs. And now we've got Exxon Mobil, right, announcing publicly that they've been doing this pilot project now since January 2021. So look, big corporations, this is what I was telling Nico before the show, big corporations don't move quick. They move very slowly, okay? And they don't often take these types of risks, especially not this type of business, okay? Like, especially not something like ExxonMobil necessarily. Or Intel for that matter. So for them to be diving into this, they've done their due diligence, they figured out their numbers, and they've realized, like, look, regardless of what we're seeing in terms of the news with the corporate-owned media and all the BS that's being thrown around about Bitcoin, the corporations, the larger corporations, are coming in and they're starting to make a dent in the footprint. So this is interesting turn of events.
How long do they put it on their balance sheet? I don't know, but the incentives, I think, are irresistible. Anyways, to address the elephant in the room that we have been covering the last couple of days, we had some big news from New York, but I'm going to cover this one first. Luckily, we missed this. I mean, they didn't vote for this, but the EU votes 32-23 against the de facto Bitcoin mining ban. It's funny because they advocate for proof of stake, which we know is bullshit, but, proof of work is bad, but it wasn't only the EU, it was also the New York State. But this one is a little bit more serious because it's already passed the committee. Now it has to be voted on in the legislation, but it hasn't been defeated yet. And that legislation essentially kills Bitcoin mining, right? They say, oh, it's okay if it's 100% renewable. Nothing is 100% renewable. And the most ironic part is that there's two different standards. Banking... Their hold to us that it's okay with banking. You don't have to ask questions, but Bitcoin mining has to be 100% renewable. I think Bitcoiners are by default a little bit, paranoid. So I would like to think it's because of control, but I don't know. Ben, what are your thoughts on this? It's BS, bro. It's BS.
It's always been nonsense, but that doesn't mean that politicians aren't going to put forward nonsense. It almost always means that that's exactly the kind of stuff that they're going to propose. I think a lot of this stuff comes from the fact that people don't actually understand electricity and energy and, what is energy? How does it get converted into electricity? How is it distributed and transmitted to your home or your business? People just don't understand it. People think electricity is like some mythical thing that, you just flip on the light switch and there's just power there and it just, you don't know where it comes from and you don't really care. And so I think when that's your perspective, it's really easy to, pick a target and say, you're the problem. I'm going to get rid of you because that'll fix everything. It won't fix anything in the energy infrastructure in Europe. They've already screwed that up through the policy. This would just be a doubling down or a quadrupling down of bad mistakes made in the past. So, I think it's very positive that it didn't happen. And if their goal is renewable electricity to power all of Europe, then Bitcoin mining helps incentivize that development and that infrastructure. So there's no reason why you should want to ban it and say, hey, we want to be completely renewable. We should actually invite Bitcoin miners to come in here, become anchor tenants at new hydroelectric dams, become anchor tenants at nuclear power plants, right? And be able to drive that baseload demand and provide that demand response that's necessary to have a stable and cost-effective grid.
Phil, what are your thoughts on this?
This might sound a little hyperbolic, but I feel as though banning proof of work essentially bans, whoever does it essentially bans themselves from future prosperity. Like I just feel like it's this terrible response, as you were indicating. It's just a terrible response, to a situation. And I feel that they're incredibly misinformed. Of course, I'm happy that it didn't go through, right? But like Nico pointed out, New York hasn't struck it down yet. And yet for some reason, like there is a heavy push over there to really get this out. Like something about that state, I don't understand it, like why they are such enemies of proof of work, but it's really, really odd. Anyways.
Yeah,
I don't think I think they're taking themselves out of the market. I said it yesterday. They're making themselves obsolete, and I think that at the end of the day, a lot of this news is just a lot of it's just a lot of noise, right? We just talked about it before. Exxon Mobil, right? Like that's the beginning of the death of the ESG narrative, as Ben indicated.
Absolutely. New York is definitely going to have fun staying poor if that passes. Anyways, check this out. Awesome name. Bitfarms commences production at the bunker. That sounds badass. Anyways, to read a little bit, the bunker is being constructed in 3 phases. Phase 1 of which has been completed, an initial capacity of 12 megawatts. A decent chunk. Energizes the bunker, moves us one step closer to meeting the target. Rapid deployment of mining assets is underway. The bunker is operating at 300 petahashes. It's a lot of miners. Upon full build out, the bunker is expected to be a 48 megawatt facility housing 13,000 miners, anticipated to deliver 1,300 petahashes per second. Construction is being done in 3 phases. So, Ben, what is the bunker?
Yeah.
What's going on?
The bunker. So the bunker's our newest Bitcoin mine that we've built, our newest Bitcoin farm that we've built. It's in Quebec, and this is in a building that was designed to be a distillery. And so the requirements for this building was that it was supposed to be able to withstand an explosion of the distillery from inside the distillery. And so the building is 3-foot thick concrete. I mean, it could just survive probably a nuclear blast. So that's why we call it the bunker. It's our biggest site that we've built so far. 48 megawatts is huge. I mean, it's 1.3 exahash. To think about all those miners being plugged in one location is really quite exciting for us. But it's not just about bunker. You know, the release there also said we're deploying miners in Paraguay. I mean, we've got a lot going on right now. We're operating in 4 different countries currently. We've got multiple facilities under development, multiple facilities under upgrading, and we just continue to grow like a weed. And that's what all the Bitcoin miners are doing right now. They're growing like a weed. And the reason why Bitcoin miners are investing now is because they're getting ready for the rally. They know that rally is coming. It's inevitable that it's coming. And the way that you make money as a miner is you buy while the market's down. You invest while the market's down, and you're ready to ride that leg up. You don't make money as a miner if you buy in at the peak. It just doesn't work that way. Nothing works that way. You cannot buy in the peak and make money. You always have to buy in at the low. So incredibly bullish, I think, seeing all the growth in the industry. And we really like to do this. You know, this is something that we think is a strategic way for us to kind of give back to the Bitcoin mining community. And give people an alternative. You know, like when I was getting started, there was just a couple of cloud miners and a couple of providers, but everything was really scammy. Everything was really sketchy. And I think that's really held the industry back. You know, part of decentralization is not just about the physical location of the machines. It's about the ownership as well. And so what we're trying to do is decentralize ownership of our hash rate through our public company. And we make cost-effective, transparent, efficient Bitcoin mining available to anybody in the world, you know, without the huge counterparty risk that you used to have with cloud mining companies and providers, not knowing if they were going to actually do what they said they were, if they were going to back out of a contract, if they were going to cancel something, if they just take your miners away. You know, it's really game-changing, I think, what's happening here in the mining industry. And that's just going to bring so much more investment, so much more attraction to Bitcoin. And it's really going to be a big driver of the next leg up.
Absolutely. It's funny that you mentioned the old distillery, because I found myself in the similar situation, which I've told Phil many times, right? Where I started, after I left Venezuela, the place where I started mining was it's in South Carolina, and it was an old pantyhose factory that had all the necessary infrastructure already there. It had it had air extractors, you know, to get the fumes out. It was already set up. So it's funny to hear you. It's like, oh, you're taking advantage of infrastructure or building that's already there. I'm sure that, you know, the electrical infrastructure somewhere is already built out, right? So yeah, it's just so funny how Bitcoin gives value to things that would already go to waste, whether that's flared gas or whether that was, you know, old buildings that, you know, no one ever thought was going to have any use anymore. So very cool stuff. Anyways, Phil, what are your thoughts on this?
You know what? I have nothing except that story just made me super bullish, right? Like that's really what it did. I was just listening to him and I'm like, wow, this is awesome. And you see the signal, like of what Ben said. He said that when the price is down, this is the time to go and invest. right? So while you have like a whole bunch of other people, a bunch of weak hands that are, running for the exits, you've got people that are doubling down, building infrastructure because they know what's coming. Bullish.
So, Ben, in the announcement, it also says that each facility is over 99% powered with environmentally friendly hydropower. Is that something that Bitfarms is trying to stick to? Just hydropower? You're not trying to, mine? Because I remember when I started mining, and it was funny because you said in 2018, 2019, things did change, and they did change because before that, it was all about grid mining and finding, scouting that cheap electricity. And I think something happened in the industry. Could you talk a little bit about that?
Sure. I mean, the hydropower is something that I think is really unique to our company. Since 2017, every Bitcoin we've mined, we've done it with hydropower. I mean, really, the province of Quebec is completely hydro. There is one nat gas peaker plant which may get turned on, but often it just doesn't get turned on at all. It could go years without being turned on. And we're on a curtailment program. So if the peaker plant was ever needed to be turned on, we would already be turned off, to make that power available to the community. For us, the hydro thing is really important on the inflation side of things. We've been sitting in a multi-year period, I think, where commodities were depressed, and nat gas and oil were really been pushed down. And that's driving a lot of those nat gas electricity prices. As we enter into this inflationary commodity super cycle, there's going to be several things that happen on the nat gas side specifically. But nat gas price has to go up. I mean, it has to go up from just inflationary concerns, but then you also have on top of that, you have the gasification of every coal plant in North America and seemingly around the world, which is increasing demand exponentially on nat gas. At the same time, regulators and politicians are shutting down new gas plants, new gas wells, new gas pipelines, new gas processing plants. And so you're restricting supply at the same time you're increasing demand in the middle of at the beginning of a commodity super cycle and inflationary, I don't know what you're going to call this, inflationary super cycle too. It's really quite crazy. And so for us, we're trying to say, as a miner, how do we make our mines profitable for the long term? We know that miner is going to be generating a good cash flow for at least 5 or 7 years. How do we set up to make sure that we can achieve that full 5 to 7 years or beyond? And I think hydro is the way to do that. There is no real costs associated with maintaining a hydro dam.
Why is it so cheap?
This is one of those situations where the capex is much higher to build a hydro plant, because it requires so much labor, so much engineering, so much excavation, so much cement. But on the backside, your OpEx is cheap because there's no fuel, there's no inputs. Like you have labor and some parts, but I mean it's very, very minimal cost. And so if you're looking at what's going to do the best in an inflationary super cycle, I want the energy source with the fewest inputs, right? I also want the energy source that's the most bureaucratic and slow to change. And that tends to be public utilities. I don't want to be in a market that has a free market for price and I'm, exposed to that price of nat gas as it continues to go up. I want to be in a place where, the utility can't change their price because then the mom and pop is going to complain about the price being changed on them. That's going to give us the most stable, long-term, cost-effective power, we think, for running our operations. So it's really strategic for us. About every farm that we have now is all hydropower. We are building our first nat gas site down in Argentina, but that's kind of a special situation as well, where we're taking advantage of an excess energy and excess infrastructure. So we're getting very, very low cost power relative to what we're paying in Quebec.
Very, very, very awesome. Ben, thank you so much. But anyways, Phil, it's not time for anything. There was an open source software release today. Why don't you tell everybody about it?
Software releases brought to you by CipherSafe. Check them out, cyphersafe.io. It's no secret. The biggest deal is storing your seed for your Bitcoin. Do it in the Cypher Wheel or the all-new Cypher Grid. They both come with a tamper-resistant wire, but the Grid comes with a punch tool. We've got Alby version 1.7.0. And for the people who don't know what that is a plugin for YouTube for people to be able to stream sats to YouTubers. The link is down below in the show notes. Don't forget, we drop our episodes on audio-only platforms. Check us out on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and Anchor. And if you want to stream us some sats, fountain.fm.
Awesome. Thank you, Fo. All right, guys, before we go, I want to give a very special shout out to our awesome thread sponsor, representltd.com or rephard.com. And you can take advantage of the link down below for 10% off anything on the store. Phil and I wear their hoodies every episode. I also want to give a very special shout out to our awesome guest, Ben. You can go give him a follow on Twitter at #override. He is the chief mining officer at Bitfarms. Now that you guys got a lot of the inside scoop at Bitfarms, correct me if I'm wrong, Ben, they're a publicly traded company in Canada. Definitely go check us out, guys. If you check them out, guys. If you enjoyed the show, you know what to do. Smash that like button. Of course, if you want to continue hearing the Bitcoin news from the pleb perspective and the catastrophic fails, definitely consider subscribing to Simply Bitcoin. And we'll see you tomorrow, guys, for a brand new episode.
ETH was shilling proof of stake in 2016. Stop falling for the roadshow. There's only Bitcoin.